Doing tonight?
All right.
Awesome. My name is Chris. I am the board president of Herkimer Next. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second, but I wanted to thank you all for coming tonight. I know coming out on a Tuesday night during a snowstorm, while normal for us in upstate New York, not always the most pleasant, but we really do appreciate you coming out. And to start out, we wanted to thank Herkimer County Community College. All the streaming tonight, all the live stream happened because Herkimer County Community College donated not only the equipment, but the manpower to stream this tonight. So those people who are able to watch at home are doing so just because Herkimer Community College and this lovely young man over here. So big hand to him. Thank you for that. Herkimer Next is about a 3-year-old organization that we founded 3 years ago to do economic and community development in our region. One of the things that we've found over the last 20 years or so is as politics change, as elected officials change, oftentimes agendas happen, stop, go away, change, happen, stop, change, go away, over and over and over. And at the recommendation of some very smart people, they recommended that here, especially in Herkimer County, that we have a nonprofit that's outside of all of that. It doesn't have to worry about political cycles, doesn't have to worry about mayoral agendas. It doesn't mean we don't work with other people, but what it does mean is we get to have a consistent agenda year over year over year over time. And so we started Herkimer Next with the idea of empowering people to get economic uplift through community and economic development that's ground up. We're used to in New York State having the government come in and start a top-down approach to something. And as we all know, the recipients at the bottom are the ones who rarely get the majority of the benefit from that. And so Herkimer Next uses a ground-up approach to community development to empower everybody to live their fullest lives when it comes to their economics. And tonight, a couple of housekeeping things. Number one, we're going to get you out of here as close to 6:45 as possible if you need to leave. There will be a reception following. We're going to have some food and some snacks and drinks back here. And the people who you'll hear speaking tonight will be here for that. So if you, for some reason, have questions that didn't get answered, you'll have an opportunity to talk to them about that. We will have Q&A at the end. So if you do have questions, keep them, remind them, write them down, whatever you need to do. I'm going to ask you to hold all your questions till the very end because we're on a pretty tight schedule tonight. Just make sure that we get through all the things we need to talk about. And finally, we just want you to know that this is really about a conversation. I'll tell you what tonight is not about. Tonight's not about blaming politicians. It's not about pointing fingers. It's not about whether you have a D, an R, or an I behind your name. It's really about we live in one of the most amazing communities on the planet. And I say that because I moved here on purpose. In 2022, I left my last company and didn't know what I was going to do. And I was doing some consulting work, and my wife and I decided that we weren't tied. We were living in the Northwest, and we weren't tied to where we were living in. So we decided, what if we lived somewhere else? We've always lived in the Northwest our whole lives. What if we lived somewhere else? And so we took an 8,700-mile road trip around America in 30 days, checking out all the places we've always wanted to visit and some of the places we might want to live. And at the end of that road trip, we made a decision on purpose to move here. We tried out Nashville, Arizona, South Carolina, North Carolina, you name the places that are cool. We went to all of them, and yet we chose to live here in Little Falls. And we did that for a lot of the same reasons that you guys enjoy Little Falls. It's natural beauty. People often forget where they're from and the impact that it has on them because things become familiar to them. When my friends from the West Coast come and visit me here, the most common phrase I hear is, "You live in a freaking Norman Rockwell painting." I'm like, yeah, and he's right from here too, by the way. He's from this region. We live in just an absolutely gorgeous place. Not only do we live in a gorgeous place, but we actually have some of the most amazing civic engagement of any place I've ever lived. I've spent the last decade and a half doing community engagement and community development throughout the United States. And I have yet to find a community as passionate about their community as the people of Little Falls. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, I've been to small towns where people love their town, and I've been to big towns where people love their town. Nothing compares to the people that you meet. You can get in fisticuffs over Ed's Pizza being the best pizza. Am I right? And so it's just an amazing place. People involved. We have garlic festivals, and we have cheese festival, and we have all these amazing things, and everybody turns out for them. I was just telling someone today, we actually have something really unique here, the Black Friday pub crawl. And I was telling somebody we were touring one of the buildings here in town today, and the last time I was in that building was the Black Friday pub crawl. There are not very many places you go that the whole community comes out on Black Friday and does a pub crawl. We have an amazing, amazing civic engagement. Not only that, we have a lot of big town benefits and small town character. Here's what I mean by that. We actually have what's considered a walkable community. And part of our decision-making process, my wife and I, when we decided to live here, was the fact that we could walk to work. We didn't have to take a car. We don't have to drive somewhere. I don't have to get on a subway or public transportation. I can literally walk out my front door and 8 minutes later be right here at the front door of this building. How cool is that? We live in just an absolutely spectacular, we even have our own app. I don't know if you guys know this. We have our own app in the App Store. You can go to I Love Little Falls and see all the things that are going on there. You can see how to get here, where to stay. There's a list of events there, and it's current. Not like someone put this up and then forgot about it. It's actually current. It's being updated. We have a lot of benefits to living here. We have a lot of things to be very, very proud of. But like a lot of places, Little Falls is changing. And please change my slide. Oh, come on. There we go. Like a lot of places, Little Falls is changing. Our demographics are changing. Our society is changing. There's a lot of things that have been changing, not throughout our world, not just throughout our world, but specifically in places like Little Falls and here in particular. As we were going through the data, there's a couple of things that I thought were just absolutely fascinating, according to the latest data. One of them is that 34% of our community are over the age of 60. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal to you, but when you combine that with the fact that 34% of our population are under the age of 30, you have this crazy mix of people who have been there, done that, raised their kids, they got grandkids, sometimes they got great-grandkids, and you got these other people who are like, I'm just having my kid for the first time, they're under 30 years old, and little kids. Actually, the second largest group by demographic is actually Generation Alpha, which are children under the age right now, under the age of 12 or 13. And so when we think about Little Falls and we think about the future of Little Falls, we're going to have to start thinking a little bit differently. We all have the feelings and the things that we've grown up with and the things we've become used to. But as the world changes and as our society changes and as people change and demographics change, we're going to have to start thinking a little bit differently about our community. We'll never go back to the glory days of factories down on Canal Place and people coming and going 5 miles or hitting up the local like bar that doesn't exist anymore. That stuff is just not around anymore. That doesn't mean that our glory days are behind us. What it means is we have to start thinking differently about what we want in the future. And if we're going to think about what we want in the future, we have to not just think about the things that you want from which shops are on Main Street or which restaurants you wish would open here or whether or not we need another car wash. We don't. But what we really need to start thinking through is, where are people going to live 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? If nearly 70% of our population are over 60 and under 30, those are different living demographics than the rest of the population. If you think about being 20 years old again, and where you lived when you were 20 years old, very different than where you live today, probably. And so when we start thinking through the needs of people who are over 60 and under 30, we're going to have to start taking into account the fact that they're going to have a different quality of life, a different set of expectations for where they live, and different needs than we may have, depending on your age group. And so as we start looking at this, I want us to think about just a couple of minor things. Number one, Little Falls, as amazing it is, actually has a median income, average income of $51,800. That's $17,000 less than Herkimer County as a whole. And I bring this statistic up for one reason. We oftentimes look around our community and think that everybody lives or is like we are, and that's just not the case in any community that you go into. There's a variety of people on the socioeconomic spectrum. There's a variety of people on where they're at in their jobs. There's a variety of people of where they're at in their life cycle. And so when you start thinking about things like we are $17,000 less in Little Falls than the rest of Herkimer County, we need to think a little bit differently about housing. We need to think a little bit differently about where people want to live and where they should live. And fascinating was the data that there are only 11 rental units available in Little Falls today. And if you go to rent.com, oh, there's only 2. Now, I bring that up partly because I personally lived it. 3 years ago, when we moved here, we moved into town and we were staying at an Airbnb just around the block over here. At that time, there was only one Airbnb here, by the way. We stayed at this Airbnb and we had no clue where we were going to live. We just said, we sold our house, we're moving to New York. We'll figure it out when we get there. Not wise, but we did it. So we start looking around. start looking for a place to live. Maybe we want to buy a place, we want to rent a place. We just need something temporary until we figured out what we really wanted to do. And so the only way I started asking around, where do I go? What do I look? Everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's kind of tough. And it wasn't until I actually met a woman, randomly, a guest speaker at an event here at Rock City Center said to me, he goes, where do you live? And I go, I just moved here yesterday. And he's like, oh, that's awesome. Where do you live? And I go, I in an Airbnb. And he goes, you should meet this lady. She actually owns some property. She might have a place for you. And I was like, hey, my name's Chris. Do you have some property? And she's like, I do. Had we not had that chance encounter, I don't know where we would have stayed. And that's the way a lot of people in our society and in this community in particular feel. If it wasn't for them knowing somebody or them having some kind of an in, they may not know where they would stay. And if you were going to move here, I can tell you from experience, if you're going to move here from scratch, you may not find a place to live. And buying a house, by the way, buying a house is not any quicker. Especially because, sorry, where's my insurance real estate guy? There you go. Sorry about this, but the number one thing I heard when I moved here was don't go to a real estate agent. You just got to now know a guy. Like, know a guy? How do you know a guy? And they're like, you just tell everybody, and then you just find something, and then you buy something off market. And I'm like, this is the most like not friendly system ever for people like me who love this community, want to live here, and want to invest in it. This is not inviting, and it's not anybody's fault. It's just the way that it is. And so when we start talking about housing, when you're going to hear some of the things we talk about tonight, this isn't about our residences. This is about our children, our parents, grandparents, and community members having places to live that is both dignified, it's a quality of life that they want to live in. By the way, those 11 units, and this is no knock on anybody, but I'm willing to bet of those 11 units, probably not all 11 are the kind of places we put our parents. So when we start talking about housing tonight and we talk about the future of Little Falls and what this means, we really need to be thinking about what do we want for our children? What do we want as we age? And what do we want for those who we care for as they age? That's a tough question because most of us have opinions and most of us have desires, but there's a lot of times where we don't know all the facts. And so tonight, what you're going to hear are some facts. And as society changes, as economic norms change, we have two options. I always think of it like a wave. Like this big wave is coming and it's got this big change attached to it. And people who are like, if you've ever been to the ocean, like with really big waves, you have two options with a wave. When it's coming at you, you can either get destroyed by it and wiped out and like fall on your face and break your neck, or you can get a surfboard and ride the wave. And I prefer a world where we let things change like this so that it's coming and adjustments that need to be made, and we ride that wave and dictate our own future. We decide. We actually are the ones who get to decide what Little Falls is going to look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And if we're not thinking about 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, we're going to be too late when the time comes to make those decisions. So tonight, as you hear the presentations, I really want you to keep an open mind. I really want you to think about what is best for my grandchildren, my children, my elderly parents. Not what do I want, what's best for my community, what's best for us as a whole. That doesn't mean my needs don't get met. Doesn't mean what I want doesn't matter. Because I was talking to Frank tonight. I said, Frank, how important is it for a developer who's done so much development to have community involvement, to have support of a community? And he said, Chris, it's absolutely everything. If we want to see change, if we want to see positive change, if we want to see revitalization here in Little Falls, we want to see people from the outside moving here because they think it's such a great community, they want to inject themselves and invest here, we have to think a little bit differently than we have for the whoever knows how long. We have to adjust our thinking and think about what's best for my community. And so tonight, as we go through this process, I want you to just keep an open mind. I want you to have some fun. I want you to be able to think about questions. We're going to have plenty of time for asking questions. And at the end of this, I really hope that as we walk away from this, we all realize that we have an opportunity to be the mouthpiece and the community activators, if you want to get all political about it, community activators to help make sure that the people in our community are well informed. We have civil conversations. We actually act as a real, genuine community, not beating each other up on Facebook, but actually having valid conversations and healthy conversations. And you can even disagree with people, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, we're all still neighbors. We're all still members of Little Falls, and we also care about this community. So with that, I want to actually invite our mayor, Ms. Deborah Kaufman, to come up and say a few words and share some thoughts.
Thank you, everyone. I'm delighted that I get out of the light there. I'm delighted that you're all here tonight. And I see so many familiar faces. We know each other. Those who don't, I'm fourth generation Little Falls native. Grew up with many of you in the audience here. We had a very different lifestyle than what we have right now. When I was growing up, we had a very vibrant Main Street. A lot of shops, a lot of things going on. And when I was very young, the two sides of the street were there. So a lot has changed, but we had jobs, we had factories going, we had a lot of interesting things. When I came back 33 years after leaving Little Falls, drove in 2008, I was really disappointed when I saw Main Street. You can tell a lot about a city when you see the Main Street. It's either vibrant and growing or it's stagnant and falling apart. We have been on a trajectory downward for 50 years. When I looked at that, my heart actually was broken. I drove around and thought, there's no way I feel comfortable living here. I worked hard in my career. I lived in Austin for a number of years, and I was used to a certain lifestyle, and it just didn't have that lifestyle anymore. So we ended up out at the lake and driving into Little Falls constantly. And the more we talked about it, my husband and I, Dave, we said, you know, this is kind of haunting us. We need to do something. What can we do? And we just so had happened to have experience in consulting with municipalities in Texas, Salado, Galveston, Austin, Smithville. And we used arts and culture as economic drivers to rebuild their communities. So we knew a little bit about what we were talking about. And the first thing we started thinking about was we need a newspaper again. Everyone here doesn't feel they're not proud of their city. How are we ever going to move their thinking if they're not proud of their city anymore? The radio station was gone for a number of years. Newspaper moved out of town, and even though they were still publishing, they weren't really covering Little Falls like they would normally. So we started My Little Falls, started the Daily Post, and a lot of other things. A charity that was Creative Outpost to help the kids that are coming out of high school that will not be going to college, that are going to need jobs. So how do we place them? There are a lot of things that we got involved in. One of the most important a couple of years ago was, running for mayor. I got to the point where I started getting impatient, I guess, and I really wanted the change to start happening. And it was a big challenge. The first thing I was interested in solving was the public safety, which we had some issues when I first took office. We put in different policies and practices, and amazing things started happening. It needed to be, above all, the safest place in the world you want to raise your kids, that you want to walk your dog in the park, whatever. It needed to be that safe, and it always had been. We returned that to the safe place that we remember from years ago. The next thing was, fiscal stability. Our population had declined. The factories have moved out, and we never did anything about it. We just endured. And 50 years of enduring it makes it really, really difficult to change. Main Street was one of those areas that needed desperately economic development. Main Street last year, we've actually made some progress. We have a strong development team, an economic development team. We have many community members that are part of that development team, and they come up with ideas and nurture interest little by little. Last year, we had 12 different businesses that moved into Little Falls. We became the bike trail city, the Empire State Bike Trail. A very important designation because it starts to drive the traffic of the bicyclists that are coming through. At one point, they were tracking 60,000, which is a huge number, into our businesses, into our city to eat, to view a movie, play golf, whatever it happens to be. We are probably the most sustainable city that there is in the region. We have everything. And Little Falls always was that way. Growing up, you didn't have to go to another city. everything was there, very compact. And like, Chris was saying that everything was walkable, still is walkable. So we have a unique lifestyle, better than just about anywhere you would want to imagine. And I've traveled in a lot of places overseas and throughout the states, obviously, but I really haven't found any place quite like Little Falls. It always reminded me of a German or an Austrian village. And the people, the same way, very family oriented. The houses that are here date back, I think it's 70% are older than 1940. So we have a lot of old properties. And with old properties, there's no move-in ready. Housing is, you buy something and you're going to fix it up for 2 to 3 years. So it's livable. So we've had real challenges with housing inventory. We don't have apartments like a lot of places. One of the beauties is that we've retained that historic charm of a small town, yet we can't accommodate a lot of the housing needs that are coming to us. And, Chris also, when he was talking about the people that are coming and asking for housing, every single day there is someone coming into the city hall talking to me about housing. And what they're looking for, great many of them are coming from downstate, and they're looking for something that they'd be proud to own, and something that is either a house or an apartment, something that is not necessarily low market, not necessarily the highest of the market, but something that is middle market. And so this project and the people involved in it to look at mid-market and affordable living as a group, I think is probably the closest we're going to ever get to finding the right people at the right time. And the right time is right now. We've got great momentum. It's real momentum. We have a lot of success stories over the last couple of years, and it's just beginning. We're not even halfway there. We've got so much to do, but we have a wonderful foundation now from which we can grow. And the people that we're talking to today, we're going to listen to Frank and Jonathan. They are the real deal. These are people who know what they're talking about. They're authentic. They are people who have the wherewithal and the pockets deep enough to make something happen. And with the investor mindset, Little Falls is very, very fortunate to have them here today to talk to us. Their interest in Little Falls is humbling, honestly. And it's the kind of interest that can transform Main Street. And you look at any city, again, that you want to look at, you can tell from their Main Street who they are. And whether they're an up and coming or are they, one that's declining. Little Falls, the Main Street, used to be this vibrant place where you stop, you meet friends, crowded on the holidays, you name it, a lot going on. That was in the past. Going forward, we want that, and the vision is even better. We want people living and engaging on Main Street. We want people who love where they live. We have the best quality lifestyle anywhere around the region, and we're proud of it. And that's one of the things that I'm embracing. I'm inviting our guests to come here, bring your vision, build here. Let's help you. Whatever we can do to help you, let's get it done. So I'm thrilled to be in a position to say hello to them, spend a few hours with them today. We had some good conversations, but they are the real deal. So delighted to have them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, welcome, everybody. My name is Frank DuRoss, born and raised in Utica, New York, lived in Utica my entire life. I'm a serial entrepreneur that's had numerous businesses, and I've also been involved in various developments throughout the Northeast, specifically New York State. So we're going to talk a little bit about the projects I've been involved with before and what an impact it had on that community. I want to tell you, I'm thrilled to be in Little Falls, as the mayor said, and building on what Chris said, it's a great city. I love this little city. It's been great. I love coming down here. I love spending my time here with everyone that's here. Everyone's been great. So it's really been
to see the crowd here tonight, someone mentioned the civic engagement, the type of events you have here. No small town, small city has what you have here. And I recognize that. And that's why I want to build upon that. And I want to be here to make a positive change, working with some other individuals. So I'll quickly go through some of the things I've been involved with, just in case you don't know. About 14 years ago, some of you may have been at the Utica Memorial Auditorium. It was an auditorium that housed, only had one tenant, basically Utica College hockey. They were struggling. The building was 50 years old. It was about to close. And I had a vision that maybe we could do something with that building. So myself and another fellow, former professional hockey player named Rob Esch, got together and decided, let's see what we can do with this auditorium. So how this happened is we then took over the building. We didn't own it, but we took over the management of it. We took over 100% of all the expenses. We took over the employees, the utilities, and a state authority owns it. I then went to the state and was able to secure $10 million to help improve the building, to bring it up to what we needed to attract an American hockey team. But we did that. It was a huge success, took off right from the first year, went back to the state the second year, got $11 million to do more improvements so we could build luxury suites, which when you own a minor league hockey team, you need the entire pie, not just a little piece of it. So we have the food and beverage, the naming rights, we control everything there, and we pay all the expenses. Then the authority that owns it ended up putting money aside for improvement. So it was a huge success, kind of changed the whole atmosphere in Utica, New York. We hadn't had a lot of success stories. People were kind of down. They didn't think we could ever accomplish anything. This showed people that we could accomplish something. We could make a change that would impact a lot of people. So we got this going. Then we had another idea that we would do what's over here, the Nexus Center. That's a building that houses tournament style play on 3 ice rinks that you can turn to turf. We thought there was a need to attract high school and college competition to come to Utica to play here. So we went to the state again. State was very willing. They saw the impact that just the auditorium had, which is now known as the Adirondack Bank Center because we sold the naming rights. So then the Nexus came. Again, we went to the state. We were able to put a deal together with the state and the county. This building cost $72 million. And this building was able to attract to Utica, New York, 360,000 people last year. Of those 360,000 people, 60% were from outside of New York State. So it helped the restaurants. It helped all the hotels. 13 years ago, when we first started with the auditorium, there were 3 hotels in Utica. Now there's 10 and 4 more on the drawing boards. The impact it's made throughout the community, before you know it, then the 3 hospitals wanted to merge in Utica, looking for a place to build. They saw the success that this brought to our community, and they built next to it, a $750 million hospital. Then they need a parking garage. Then there was a 1,500 car parking garage. So the simple story is, we believe in it. We believe in Little Falls. I believe we can make a difference here. And I want to show you what we'd like to do here in Little Falls, so you can have the same trajectory that we had in Utica. You can look at, this is the Snyder Hotel back a few years ago, Adirondack Bank Building a few years ago. Just so you see. Here you have Ivy Gardens. Everyone's familiar here with Ivy Gardens. Garrett Wright and Brendan are the owners and operators of it. They've worked very hard. They love Little Falls. This is their community, and they wanted to turn it into something. So we partnered up on Ivy Gardens, and we're going to be partnering up on the Adirondack Bank Building. Ivy Gardens is going to have 21 apartments in it, 1 and a few 2-bedroom apartments, between 600 and 700 square feet. And every apartment's going to have washer and dryer. We're going to provide internet and cable service included in the rent. We're going to have access that's going to be controlled. We're going to have intercoms in every apartment where you can see who wants to get in. To get in, they're gonna have to use a fob or give a key. You'd have to give them to allow people in. It's really amazing. This project will be done this summer. We've already started doing this. It'll be done this summer. Similar to what the mayor said, we've had people approach us and ask us, when will it be done? When are the apartments going to be available? Soon we'll start developing a list of potential tenants here. This is the back of Ivy Gardens now in the parking lot. Next over here, you see what the parking lot will look when we're done our construction here. And by the way, these photos are all over. When we're done, everyone can walk around and look at them to get a closer look. This is the inside of one of the apartments at Ivy Garden before we started. That is a finish that's going to be there when we're done with it. So you can see the difference, obviously. Here's the Adirondack Bank building, as you can see, and that's just looking down at the original Herkimer County Trust building you built in 18-something, just so you can have an idea. This is when scaffolding is done. Obviously, we're going to fix the roof, fix the outside, point it up, and this will be what the outside will look without scaffolding. You kind of see what the living room will look here. See, that's what the living room is going to look like. It's all going to have nice luxury vinyl tile. Some of the kitchens are going to have all stainless steel appliances, granite countertops. They're really going to be high end for sure, we believe. So we think that's going to be very popular. Basically, going to have majority are going to be 1-bedroom apartments, because in other projects that I've built, 1-bedroom apartments are the ones that are most in demand now. They really are. Cool. So I talked a little bit about what it takes to do a project like this, just so you know. The finance of this project is made up of about 3 or 4 different components. An individual investment or other outside investors, we need that. We need a bank loan. We also get historic tax credits where we can take some of those and put it into the building. And then we need some state funding. So just so you understand on some of the projects I've been involved with, we've done probably in the last 13 years about $140 million of projects in Utica, New York. We were able to get state funding for almost $90 million of those projects. These projects, the cost of renovation today is, so expensive. We all know what it is when you go to the lumberyard, buy all the lumber, whatever you need. It's very expensive developing now. Sometimes it can be up to $300 a square foot. It's our goal to do it for around $250 a square foot. And we have been able to do that, but it's very expensive. Without help from the state and without historic tax credits, investors' money, these projects just don't work. You can't make them pencil, they call it. We want to be here long term. We've already had very positive discussions with a bank, a lending institution that would be involved in this project. We've met with the historical committee, so we will get historic tax credits here and invest some of that money. And then we're going to personally be investing some money in here. So I just want to say, I believe that what we do here is going to have the same impact of what we did in Utica, had in Utica. I mean, with everything you have here, with all the activities, with all the people that are so involved here, the Garlic Festival, Canal Fest, everything you do, Cheese Festival. It's pretty amazing what you do in a small city. So we want to be part of it, quite honestly. So I just want to say, these are all going to be market rate apartments. These are not going to be subsidized. They're all market rate. As Chris pointed out, there's not a lot of apartments now for people under 30 or over 60. And those are people looking for 1-bedroom. We will have probably 6 or 8 2-bedroom apartments also, but basically going to be 1-bedroom apartments. So I just want to say I'm proud to be here. I'm happy to be here. And I want to be part of this regeneration of Main Street and what we can do here. We'll be working closely with the mayor. We'll be working closely with the state and our other investors to get this done. Now what I'd like to do is call up Dave. Dave has more history than I do in this community. And part of the reason I'm attracted here is because of the civic engagement and what everybody brings. So Dave, welcome. I was thinking of some questions I could ask you.
Okay, that's great.
Can you tell us When you arrived here to Little Falls, what were the kind of things have you been doing here? What attracted you here? Why are you here still?
Well, I arrived in 2009, about, 17 years ago now. I was hired by a client from London, England, to look at properties in the United States that they were interested in purchasing. One of the buildings on his list was here in Little Falls. After arriving here, seeing the city, the potential it has, walkability, sustainability, the architecture, I sort of convinced them to buy a different building here, instead of the other 12 or 14 that had on their list all over the country, from New York to Florida to California. Now it didn't work out for them. I eventually purchased the building from them, and I got to know Chico, Little Falls Construction, most of you know, Red Uric is Chico, and worked with him here, designing stuff for him and other projects.
Great. I know how involved you are in this community, and I've been to the Cheese Festival, a few events, but give me a snapshot of some of the other events that are going on here in Little Falls that make it such a unique, special town.
Well, I think the nonprofits here, Main Street First, Preserve Our Past, the Historical Society, well, we have a number of them that really help the community grow and learn about the historic nature, Historical Society. And, I mean, for a long time, Main Street First had Third Thursday events. And we have the Garlic Festival, Cheese Festival. And I'm just a helper by nature, so I volunteer a lot.
Yeah. Here's another thing. This afternoon when I was in the Adirondack Bank building, you know, on the top floor, I looked down and I saw it was in one of the slides we had, the historic Herkimer County Bank building, trust building, built in 1800 and something. Seemed a little different to me that was still there, but can you tell me a little bit of the history and why and how that happened? I know it's your historic society now. Pretty amazing for a community this size to have a historic, you know, society, a building, and all the other things. Tell me about that.
Yeah, when they were redeveloping that block in 1964, Urban Renewal purchased that building from the Adirondack, or from Herkimer County Trust Company. And it was scheduled to be demolished for that parking lot that's there behind the M&T Bank. The Historical Society, who actually formed in 1963, shortly before that, put up a fight, sent around flyers to stop the demolition of the historic building. It's probably the only structure like that existing in New York State, maybe even the country. They were able to purchase it from the Urban Renewal in 1970, and shortly after that, they moved in to make that their home.
Talk a little bit about, you know, the Shopper Square and Price Chopper, you know, what happened there and how the community band together to keep the only grocery store local within the city. Pretty amazing story, I think.
Well, there was some conflict in the beginning.
Yeah.
But that's where Main Street first started. A developer approached the city about building a supermarket and retail out at the quarry, property that the city owned at the time. A new supermarket, which would have been a Price Chopper, and some other strip stores, drugstore, and retail outlets. Of course, at that time, the Big M, which was in Chopper Square, which was our local supermarket, was struggling. The building was deteriorating. They had buckets on the floor when it rained. So it was obvious from our standpoint that if that went in, then Chopper Square would have cleared out. Certainly the Big M would have gone out of business. Probably a Subway would have moved out there. Maybe the CVS for new space. So we formed Main Street First in opposition to that. Ultimately, we decided not to be in opposition, but to make some suggestions and offer up some alternatives to, you know, that development, and one of them was redeveloping Shopper Square and putting a new supermarket in the center of town, so it would be walkable. I don't know if you're familiar, but there's a age restricted apartments across the street from there, Rockland Plaza. Those occupants, those tenants there, walk across the street to get groceries. A lot of them are older, infirm. They wouldn't be able to get out to the quarry to get the groceries. They'd have to arrange for driving. I think that was a great thing for the city to keep it in the downtown, keep it there for businesses, as well as, residents to get there.
Thanks, Dave. I mean, we talk much more about all these unique things in Little Falls, but it points out that it helped convince me that this is the city that I'd like to spend some money in, that I'd like to develop. I want to be here. And I think the uniqueness of what you have here in Little Falls is something we want to take advantage of by converting these two into landmark buildings here in Little Falls. So I think I'm done now. I'd like to call up Jonathan Bauer, who will come up next. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Good evening. Really excited to be here. I'm relatively new. I'm probably the newest person to Little Falls here in the room, but something about the little factor, I actually see a lot of familiar faces here already. So it's a very welcoming community. And as we walked in here, you saw the pictures that Frank brought. They were kind of the before and after. I think that before and after is something that I see in a lot of my work from coast to coast and communities like this. And I'd say Little Falls is unique in a lot of ways. Unique architecture, unique history. There's a unique common story here, kind of almost like a mythology that people share about what happened 100 years ago or 25 years ago or 3 years ago. People have those common stories here. And I think that is something that's really representative of a strong community. What is not unique is that Little Falls really has a shared common experience with a lot of other cities that have experienced economic decline over the last 5 decades. These are the types of communities that I work in. Population outmigration, people have moved from towns. Income levels have dropped. I'm very active in the National Housing Crisis Task Force. So I see these kinds of challenges from coast to coast. And I'm going to talk a little bit today based on kind of my initial read on Little Falls and talk a little bit about what's worked in other communities that we invest in and what I think might be very effective here. So it's a partnership, Arctaris and Little Falls. We don't come in and fix cities. The people who live in cities fix the cities. The people who, are carrying windows when it's 10 degrees below zero to help fix up a building, and people who are doing jobs, are the people who are helping their neighbors. It's strong communities that enable groups like Arctaris to do what we do. Just a quick background on us, and I'm not trying to sell anything. I just want you to know who I am. Another city that I won't mention. It's a great town, but I remember going to a small town in Pennsylvania, and the rumor got out that Arctaris was trying to make that city into a sanctuary city. And I was just like, where did that come from? It was in the paper. And I was like, I don't even know how to make a city a sanctuary city. How would one do that? But just a little background on us. I'm a career venture capitalist, retired a long time ago, started a firm called Arctaris Impact 16 years ago. We've been investing in low-income communities from day one. Initially, the concept was replicate the vigor of a venture capital fund, but have the mission and the heart of a philanthropy. And quickly, we said that's way too long. Let's just say doing good and doing well. That's what we do. We invest across country, done 18 different place-based programs, which this is kind of like, that's the talk here right now. And these are typically with cities or entire states that want to accomplish something. They say, hey, we've got this before here and we want to be more in the after. And sometimes it's not really clear what the after looks like. Some people say, well, you know, it's housing, or no, we want manufacturing back. But ultimately, we kind of get together, put up a lot of ideas and say, this is a tactical 10-year business plan to get from where we are right now to where the community wants to be. And we set realistic goals. You know, it's not, hey, we're going to return you to 1917 prosperity. It's, you know, we're here and we want to be here. And how do we accomplish that goal set? We've done 8 funds, private equity and credit, all with strong mission mandate. And we partner in all of these funds with government, with large corporate institutions and foundations to support these impact investments. We invest in operating businesses, we invest in housing, we invest in infrastructure. We've done a ton of broadband fiber, coast to coast, and low-income communities, and you know, we aim to deliver good returns with the measurable impact. If you go to our website, there's an option to download the Arctaris impact report, and it gives a lot of case studies on, hey, what did these guys do in Erie, Pennsylvania? Or, you know, tell us about what they're doing in Baltimore or Detroit or other places like that. And you'll see they're common threads, but everything is really unique and customized to the city's objectives. Some of our partners are the Kresge Foundation, the R.K. Mellon Foundation, the Able Foundation, Finance Authority of Maine, a lot of different groups like that that share our mission. And they want to provide catalytic capital to help these things come to fruition. We invest a lot of capital, we create a lot of jobs, create a lot of housing, and you know, we do a lot of broadband. We have a lot of impact from coast to coast, and we have a third-party impact audit every year that goes and counts those numbers independently and puts them in our impact report. Thought I would just give a little preview of some of the projects that we've done. These are, I'll also talk about some of the actual transactions, some of the real estate projects and companies that we've invested in. But Baltimore, as you probably know, has high poverty. They were heavily reliant on manufacturing industries that left the city long ago. There are a lot of systemic challenges there. The foundation community and the city really wanted to do something transformative, and we've invested $75 million of our capital there year to date and delivered some really incredible results. One of the benefits, if you want to call it, of being so low in the income spectrum is there's a lot of means, there's a lot of good bones in a community like that. Yeah, you could buy a hotel and convert it into housing. I mean, there are things like that that you can do in a city that has fallen as far as Baltimore. Cleveland, Erie, Pennsylvania. Erie is another one that's kind of interesting. It's larger, it's population 75,000, but it's down 2/3 from its peak. Heavily reliant on steel, on General Electric, on industries that are no longer there. The part of Erie that we focused on was basically the Main Street downtown corridor. The average family income there dropped $. I mean, here, this is 50. So, I mean, they're 20 cents on the dollar. Now, there are a lot of reasons why that happened. A lot of people left town, and, you know, it was, you know, what the population that was left over was unfortunately very kind of challenged and unemployed. But the city had good bones. It's a county seat. They have 2 meds, they've got 2 hospitals, 2 colleges, a bunch of law firms, a Fortune 400 insurance company, and all of those people lived outside of Erie and just drove in every day. So the goal there was, how do we make Erie a place that people want to live, work, eat, and play again? And, you know, one solution would be just build a bunch of housing. But who wants to live here if there's no grocery store? Who wants to live here if everything closes at 4:30 p.m. and nobody goes out? So we did a climbing gym, we did apartments. We actually did a parking deck because, you know, we needed more room for the people. We did a grocery store and a food desert. We did a food hall with 7 kind of fun, eclectic food vendors. And like Erie has, you know, a really strong pulse now. People have moved downtown. People said, oh, nobody's going to move there for a couple of years until you see if Erie's going to work out again. We leased up our apartments in 2 months. Like people were dying to have some sort of like energy and vitality. Northern Maine is nothing like here, but we took on a community called the Rangeley Lakes region. It's 5 towns, population 4,000. The largest employer in the county was a ski resort that shut down in 2015. When they shut down, they axed 300 full-time jobs, and 3,000 jobs left the region in the next 18 months because businesses failed left and right. We bought the mountain in 2020, reopened it in the middle of the pandemic. We've operated it for 6 years. They just got ranked the #1 ski resort in the East Coast by Ski Magazine, and they've got housing starts, property prices have tripled, people are working. Sometimes it's hard to hire people because, you know, the town is doing so well right now, but that's been an exciting one. Pittsburgh, Colorado, we've done a lot of these different projects around. And in each of these cases, you know, figuring out what the foundation should look like is really key. It's usually talking to the mayor, usually talking to the governor, usually talking to economic development agencies, local business leaders, nonprofits who care. We usually do an economic development study. We'll bring in 1 of 2 academics that we usually work with to really sit down, do case studies, do interviews, do cluster analysis, figure out what are the strengths of this community that will really propel it forward in the next 10 years. And that helps inform us to do a better job as investors so that we can invest in the things, not necessarily the things that will make money in the short term, but the things that will be sustainable businesses that will stay around and be there in the long term. This is kind of a boxes and arrows chart. But the point is that Arctaris tries to put itself in the middle of private capital. Most of our money comes from insurance companies, from banks. Community Reinvestment Act banks are amongst our largest investors. We're working with low-income communities, and then, of course, foundations, governments, and other community partners. The foundations and governments typically come in as 1% capped return investors, and they agree to be higher risk and lower return than the banks and insurance companies that provide the bulk of our capital. But the reason they're doing that is they want to be catalytic. They say, I'll put $5 million into the Baltimore program, and you can cap my return at 1%, and you can, if you don't return capital to your investors, we get nothing. They're willing to take that catalytic approach because they want their $5 million to turn into $75 million, not as an investment return. They want their $5 million to catalyze other banks and insurance companies to invest in our programs so that we can deliver the kinds of projects that they want to see. So some of this was covered already. Chris gave a great overview. I just wanted to give a map of the town. And the green shaded area is the designated opportunity zone. This designation happened in 2018 after the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. This is Opportunity Zones 1.0. It's a tax incentive designed to attract private capital to come in and reduce the burden of government and do lots of good things. Interestingly, Ann Street is the border of the opportunity. You go down Main, and Ann Street is the end of the border. And you go one more block over, and it still looks kind of the same, but it's not in an opportunity zone. So census tracts are kind of arbitrary. It's shaped like an amoeba. It doesn't make sense. We can't move the lines. It is what it is, but this is the opportunity zone, and this is the area that we seek to invest in primarily. You may have heard on the 4th of July, the new tax plan authorized a new Opportunity Zone 2.0 program and actually made it permanent. So Governor Hochul in the second quarter of this year will be designating new opportunity zones. And her choice is either to protect and renew the zone that's already there or not. The other side of town is still not eligible. The average family income on the other side of town is double this green map. And that, of course, ignores inconsistencies and blocks and people. And, you know, there are boarded up buildings there. It looks like an opportunity zone. No, it's binary. So it's either this or nothing. So it's very important now, and obviously been talking about it with your mayor, to get the story out there that, you know, you want this renewed. The poverty rate in this area here is 20%. It's double the national average. That's why it's eligible to be an opportunity zone. Median family income, 51%. The unemployment rate is 10.8%, which is higher than I think we want it to be. So the goal is to use OZs over the next 10 years so that neither part of Little Falls will qualify next time around. You want to have that kind of economic development improvement that you won't be qualified for opportunity zones because this becomes a more economically vibrant community. I mentioned before the National Housing Crisis Task Force that we work with a lot, and you know, I use it a lot to kind of influence policy in the direction that will be more effective, more conducive to business, more conducive to housing solutions. But I thought it would be helpful just to say, okay, zoom out. We're taking a few steps back from Little Falls. Why is the United States having a housing crisis right now? Yeah, we've got a shortfall of 7 million homes. Building homes has gotten really, really expensive. You know, home prices to build have gone up like this, and incomes haven't gone up nearly that much. So you've got problems with homelessness, but you've also got problems with teachers and firefighters and police officers and nurses who can't afford to buy a home. And we're going to talk a little bit about what are some of the tactical solutions for addressing that right now. And I'd say there's also a wide variation across markets. We were talking about Austin, Texas earlier today. Austin, Texas overbuilt. They had, you know, a sugar high from, you know, low interest rates and high population increases and everything else, and developers, you know, way overbuilt there. And I'm sure in 3 years people will keep moving there and it'll be fine. But Colorado Springs, Provo, Utah, West Phoenix, some of these markets, Atlanta, they totally overbuilt. So there's not a housing shortage everywhere, but there is a housing shortage in places that have not been experiencing increases in populations, that have not been experiencing increases in incomes, and that have not seen big industries moving to town. If there were a $10 billion chip manufacturing plant going up right next door, you would be seeing new housing starts here. But absent that, we need to look at some of the solutions. So on the regional housing trends, and this will kind of offer a little bit of insight into what some of the solutions are that still work today. Increased vacancy in hotel and office. We're talking about some office buildings that could be converted into housing. You know, that is an interesting community asset that can be at least better utilized than it is today. Those buildings can contribute to the local tax base. They can provide housing. They can attract new people into town who might not be able to find decent, acceptably priced housing options here. There's also a high inventory of vacant homes, and we'll talk about how we're using that in places like Detroit and Flint. And thirdly, foundations and governments are all over this issue. I mean, everyone knows it's a problem, and you're seeing philanthropy, you're seeing new government programs. You know, I've been spending a lot of time over the last 3 months trying to develop a national housing policy that will address these kinds of things and make opportunity zones more effective, not just for rentership, but for home ownership. So the Arctaris housing approach. So this is a little bit more about what we're working on right now. And, you know, we invest across the spectrum. We've built houses on a ski resort. We've done condos. We've done missing middle. We've done a lot of workforce housing. We've done a ton of affordable housing, and we've done permanent supportive services housing. So that is the full spectrum. And really what we're doing in each community is a reflection of what the community wants and what the community needs. We partner with foundations and government agencies to blend capital, investor capital, kind of soft concessionary capital to make things happen that normal capital markets, normal equity, normal bank loans wouldn't be able to accomplish on their own. And things that are working right now are tax abatements. If it's hard to build a building that will house a bunch of people, some communities are willing to give a 10 or 20 or 20 real estate tax abatement. It's a great thing for Brooklyn because they've got all the tax revenue they need. It's not a great thing for small towns that are really reliant on an increase in their tax base. But tax abatements are very effective at getting projects over the finish line. Second thing is single family acquisition and rehabilitation. Detroit is probably the most extreme example, but we're buying single family homes there for $50,000. They were bought 5 or 10 years ago by Chinese LLCs for $10,000. The investors never saw the houses and they certainly never improved them. We're putting another $50,000 into fixing them up and then putting them into a rental pool and offering the tenants the option, but not the obligation to buy them. And, that's taking blighted neighborhoods and house by house, fixing it up. It's really hard manual labor, and it doesn't finish when the construction finishes because property management on a pool of single family houses is a really big job. But it solves the problem and it has a decent economic return. Another one that we've been doing lately is hotel to residential conversion. And during the pandemic, a lot of hotels, they lost their flags, they shut down, they boarded up. We just bought a 37-story former Embassy Suites in the Baltimore Inner Harbor. We bought it for $25,000 per suite per room, and we're putting about $80,000 per room into finishes, appliances, everything else. These had kitchenettes already, so the plumbing was in the right places, the interior walls were in the right places. We'll be able to rent those out without any federal government subsidy or city subsidy for $1,200 to $1,300 a month, which is a very attainable rental point for working families living in Baltimore. Just did a second one just north of DC and in Silver Spring, a DoubleTree. So buying vacant buildings and converting them into housing, when you've got the right building to start with, it can be a very effective strategy. Another one is master lease. So we partnered with Los Angeles has a terrible homeless crisis. There are tents everywhere right now, and the city is very focused on getting those people off the streets and into homes. The problem is that they're often spending way too much money to build these buildings. But we partnered with United Way of Greater Los Angeles to do a 227 unit building, eight-story building, downtown LA. No parking. It's right across the street from transit-oriented developments. There's a rail station right there. And, within 30 days of finishing the project, people had literally moved in. It was the first homes they had lived in years. And they have, a microwave and a spatula and a bed, and they've got everything that they need to live comfortably. It solves a real problem that, you're seeing in Los Angeles. The problem is you need 100 more of those for Los Angeles at scale, but these are effective things. And then finally, missing middle housing. And this is kind of the next step up from workforce housing. Middle. This is people who don't qualify for government subsidy, but they don't have enough money or income to buy a home. We're doing this in Erie right now. We're doing 60 units there, and it's nice. It's I'll show you actually a picture. It's the one on the top right there. It looks like a neighborhood. It looks like a collection of single family homes. These are actually fourplexes, but each side of the house has its own front door. So it's congruent to the neighborhood. This is, again, without subsidy, but, this is the kind of thing that you can do right now. It's much more expensive to go high rise. So if you're doing basically, 2- and 3-story units like this, You can save a lot of money on construction cost. You don't need concrete parking. It's a much better solution. Going from right to left, 300 Nevins. This is in Gowanus. This is right on the Gowanus Canal. 650 units, high rise, 25% affordable, 70% market rate. Rents in Brooklyn for a single room are $5,500 a month right now. That's the challenge that they're having right now. So it's like, how do you solve that? That's a 25-year tax abatement, but you know it worked. And then the one on the left is the one in downtown LA that I just mentioned there, Flower Street. So I think my mouth went faster than the pictures, but the one in the middle is the former Embassy Suites. The one on the far right is the DoubleTree, and this one right here. These are the single family homes in Detroit that we're doing for total cost basis of $100,000 to $110,000 per home. Got some more pictures here of the Erie flagship building. That's a double block of apartments. Neat historic tax credit building. The building was so old they didn't have the original building records, so the historic tax credit people made us put plaster over that. We had to put plaster and drywall over the brick. Said, but it was originally brick. You know, why do we? Drywall didn't exist when that building was built, but it worked out well in any case. We've done a bunch of workforce housing in Colorado, Glenwood Springs and Grand Junction, and the Northeast Heights is another government lease deal that we did in Southeast DC. So a bunch of stuff currently under construction here, going from New York to Huntsville, Alabama to Baltimore. And just as a last point here, I wanted to talk a little bit about what this community partnership idea really means. I mean, first and foremost, it means transparency. We talk about what's working well, and we don't exaggerate. We also talk about what's not working well. And we're very candid. We do third-party impact audit. We share that data with the community. And we have community advisory board meetings so that we can talk with everyone from your elected leadership to working people in the city to understand how are things going and what can we do better. We bring in a lot of expertise in public-private partnerships. That's what we do. I don't know of another opportunity zone fund that focuses on public-private partnerships, period. So this is really, in the community rooting. And I think on a certain level, it makes our investments work better. If you build an apartment building and the building is okay, but everything around it is rusting or crumbling or whatever else, what is that building worth at the end of 10 years? Opportunity zones are a 10-year period. So we're kind of here for a long time. We want to see everything succeed around it. We have aligned incentives. We want the local capital to be matched with Arctaris capital, and by local, you saw the before on the Adirondack Bank building. I mean, it's not an easy layup project. There's a lot of cleanup. There's probably structural repairs. There's going to be a fair amount to do. I mean, we'd estimate that's going to require at least $5 million of state of New York funding to make that project work. So, we want to be very candid with our government partners to explain why this needs the helping hand of government. And, and then of course, local government and community engagement. We spend a lot of time in the community before we start working, and we keep coming back and coming back. So, but we're excited about this. We're working on similar programs in Rochester right now, in Buffalo, and I'm going to Utica tomorrow with Frank to look at some opportunities there. But these are the types of things we do. There's nothing that makes me more excited than seeing our capital, our research, and really our collaboration from bearing results in the community and seeing it over time. When you're starting, it seems like a real uphill challenge, and 3 years, 5 years into a program, people start moving back to the community. People are earning more money, people have better homes. And, finally, I've been doing this for 16 years now. At the end of a 10-year program like that, the results are extremely measurable. So there's nothing that makes me feel better than helping a community achieve its goals. And again, it's the community's goals. It's not my goals. So thank you.
Well,
Michele is next.
Michele Hummel, for those that may not know me, bear with me a minute. Skipped a bunch of slides. I actually just I wanna make sure that I say, thank you to all of you, both in person and the people who are logged online, watching this tonight. We thank you so much for your participation. This has been a great conversation. I know before we open it up for questions, I just could be kind of quick about this. We got it, okay. So, this tonight was not about presenting a project to you and seeking approval. It was about sharing information, being transparent, and the information that we shared was grounded in data, which is extremely important as you make these types of economic development decisions. And more importantly, inviting the community in. There's no reason not to be transparent here. So we want to hear your feedback. We're going to open it up for questions in just a moment. And I do want to let you know that we are going to continue this conversation after the questions. We'll stay here for a while tonight if you're interested in joining us for some hors d'oeuvres and some mingling. But this is not over. So Next is forming a Mohawk Valley Housing Coalition. So we know that we have housing crisis in our region, and you'll hear me every single time that I'm in front of any audience or with a microphone. You hear the word collaboration come out of me. And I live that to the core. There's no question. So the more people we have around the table sharing ideas, the better we're going to be for it. So I'm not going to go on too terribly long. I just wanted to make sure that I thank you all for coming. I would like to also thank all of our speakers for all of their time and everything. And again, Herkimer County Community College and Next. We also have some other folks here too that are doing some additional briefing too. So thank you all, and I'm going to turn it over to Chris to open it up for questions and answers.
I'm going to ask really quick for Mayor Kaufman and all three speakers, including Michele, to come back up here real quick. We got about time for maybe 2 or 3 questions. The good news is during our reception, all of the mayor and everyone else will be here. So if you have questions that don't get answered right now, you can answer them in a few minutes. But real quick, are there any questions that you have for anybody who spoke tonight? Yes.
The Ivy Garden apartment and the bank building, these are going on, these are already ongoing projects, or are you looking for these investors to help you put a package together?
Great question. Ivy Gardens is under construction right now, rehab, sitting right next to you, the 2 people, they're rehabbing it now. 21 apartments will be open this summer. The Adirondack Bank building, nothing has been done yet. We need to figure out what they call the capital stack on where the money's coming from, who's putting what money in, what type of aid we can get from the state, what our investors will put in, and what the bank will lend us. That is, we have an architect already on board. We have a contractor on board who does $250 million a year. That's going to be doing another project here in Little Falls. That company has agreed to do the Adirondack Bank building renovation. So nothing's going on yet. We're still going through the paperwork. Jonathan and I are talking among ourselves on how we could structure a deal that makes sense for both of us and for the community.
Any other questions? Yes.
I have 2 questions, one for Chris and one for Frank. Chris, I was at a Herkimer County Chamber of that last year. And the president of Herkimer County Community College announced that the average Herkimer County income was $46,000. That was different than the $68,000 you showed. So what's the disparity?
I'll let Michele answer that.
To speak to that. So I don't know. I don't know exactly where they got their data from, but we have invested in something called Placer AI. It's actually the same data access that the county uses, and also United County Tourism uses it, so it's very common. And this allows us to actually hone in. It uses cell phone data, kind of creepy, but it's really cool. And it will anonymously let us know who attends an event. That's how we know how many people attended the Garlic Festival, for example. Not only that, we can tell what the median income is. We can also, we can divide it down by census populations. We can pull different, municipalities apart and would have gotten that information from, but ours came.
I told it when I saw 68,000, I shot. I've been retired for 5 years, but, it was nowhere near that 5 years ago.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering that. Go ahead.
So HUD publishes this data, housing and urban development.
Yes.
They publish it for areas and then also for states. They do one, which is the median family income. So think of that as the household. And then there's also the individual. So you're probably getting the individual,
I asked that.
yeah.
I did wonder.
Yeah.
But your 68,000 is a household. Is that what you had also? 68,000 around there?
My data was based on family income, median family income. It was 53,000 for Little Falls, and it's 993 for the metropolitan statistical area here, which is it's Rome and Utica together and the whole Herkimer County.
The parking that you showed, is it strictly for Ivy Garden, or is that also for the girls?
We're gonna use it for, we're also working on parking for Ivy Gardens. It's different than the parking behind the building, which would be for Adirondack Bank. We're working on a plan on where we're gonna find additional parking.
Okay, you're calling Adirondack Bank,
Bank building.
what I might call
The Burrell, yes.
Okay.
So we're working on the parking. It's not finalized yet. We know we need more parking. We think we can accommodate between some other conversations we've had with some local owners there. We can probably accommodate at least 40, 50 cars.
I think there was a commitment that the city made with Garrett and with Reading with regard to a lot.
There's-
on the other side.
There is a city does have a parking lot over there that we'll have those conversations about using. Yes, we feel it is.
Okay. Yeah, that was it.
One more, we got time for one more question. Yes,
That's good. For Mr. Towers here, how many homes have you completed with the single family renovations in Michigan?
About 110 at this point.
Okay, so the next thing, second part of the question would be, would you be interested in offering the opportunity for the city of Little Falls?
I think it would be excellent for Little Falls.
I love the idea of giving homeowners, so there are people in this community that rent and an opportunity for a pathway to ownership. I think it's the most rewarding thing that a person can attain in their life. And I just love the.
Thank you. I mean, the big reason I'm working hard to change the OZ rules to allow home ownership right now is because when people buy homes, they develop equity, they build up equity, and they can pass it to the next generation. When people own homes, they care about their neighbors more. They care about taking care of their homes. They care about their communities. They plant real roots. And I think that as homeownership has declined in this country from 65% to 60%, we've seen a number of cracks and fissures that, are symptomatic of a lot of different things, but reversing that trend is really key to the initiative here.
Thank you. And I'd like to say, we've already had a conversation about that, and we believe, let's get these apartments done first, get that project, then there's other projects we can take on working together, as Jonathan mentioned, and that would be one of them for sure.
I love it. The vision feels comfortable in my humble opinion.
Right.
awesome. Would you give each of our speakers tonight a big hand?
We're gonna be around if you want to look at some of the pictures we have up about what it looks like now and what it's gonna look like after. We're here to answer any questions you may have.
And also the slides, everything will be available. We will make sure that the link gets out to you. I saw it, so, that the link gets out to everybody, so you'll be able to see it afterwards.
I want to close with one last thought. I've been here for 3 years. I'm a resident. I know how this town works. You know how this town works. There's a lot of chatter, a lot of talk. Not all of it's accurate. You guys have now heard, and you've heard tonight talk about the transparency that's here for this. You have questions? Ask. Don't spread gossip. Don't spread rumors. Be an ambassador of data and honesty and truth, because that's what's most important in this. Everybody has ideas. You're going to hear stuff. I guarantee, just like you were saying, a sanctuary city. Come on. Really? There's all kinds of stuff you're going to hear over the next year, 2 years, 3 years. The crazy people who are going to live in Ivy Gardens. Talk to the guys who are doing the work here. They don't want crazy people in the place they just spent a bunch of money on. They're putting their life savings in there. They don't want crazy people in there. Right? And I mean that metaphorically, right? So if you have questions, ask. Don't spread rumors, spread truth. Everyone's here to be honest and be transparent. So thank you guys all for coming tonight. Grab some food, grab some drinks, and have a good time. Thank you.